13. Proverbs 13. There are 25 verses. I'm just going to break it up into 5-verse chunks. Verses 1 through 5. Who will take that? Bryce. Verses 6 through 10. Patty. 11 to 15. Noella. 16 to 20. Carol. And you got to go fast, Carol. Everyone raises their hand so quick. 21 to 25. Go ahead, Matthew. Hey, there could be worse problems we could have, right? No one wanting to read. I think it's great that our kids want to read. You're not a kid, are you? I'm sorry.
He's my kid.
I am an
You can say it.
offspring.
Huh?
I am an offspring.
Well, technically we all are.
That's just weird, man. That's just weird.
This is live.
And it's live. If anyone pays any attention to this, they know we have fun. Okay. 1 through 5. I don't remember who started. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
A wise son accepts his father's discipline, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. From the fruit of a man's mouth he enjoys good, but the desire of the treacherous is violence. The one who guards his mouth preserves his life. The one who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, but the soul of the diligent is made fat. A righteous man hates falsehood, but a wicked man acts disgustingly and shamefully.
Righteousness guards people of integrity, but wickedness undermines the sinner. One person pretends to be rich but has nothing. Another pretends to be poor but has an abundant wealth. Riches are a ransom for a person's life, but a poor person hears no threat. The light of the righteous shines brightly, but the lamp of the wicked is put out. Arrogance leads to nothing but strife, but wisdom is gained by those who take advice.
Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers it little by little will increase it. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Whoever despises the word brings destruction on himself, but he who reveres the commandment will be rewarded. The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, that one might turn away from the snares of death. Good sense wins favor, the way of the treacherous is their ruin.
In everything the prudent acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a faithful envoy brings healing. Poverty and disgrace come to him who ignores instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is honored. A desire fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but to turn away from evil is an abomination to the fool. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but companions of fools will suffer harm.
Disaster pursues sinners, but the righteous are rewarded with good. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous. The foul ground of the poor will yield much fruit, but it is swept away through injustice. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the belly of the wicked suffers want.
Okay. All right. This one's a very interesting chapter. There's a lot going on here in this one. There's a lot. So we're going to take our observations, talk through specific things as you have questions as they arise. I find that there is more or less a single theme, or maybe better, a thread that runs through this whole chapter that maybe is a little bit unique to this chapter. We'll see if we can figure out that thread as we go. All right, give me your observations. Abby, go ahead.
There's a lot about your mouth.
A lot about the mouth. Mouth. Big mouth.
I noticed there's a lot about the poor And the rich, like verse 7, one pretends to be rich yet has nothing, another pretends to be poor yet has great wealth, and the foul wound of the poor, and wealth gained hastily.
Absolutely.
I found verse 19.
Verse what?
Like 19.
19? Oh, yeah.
A desire fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but to turn away from evil is an abomination to fools.
Okay.
It's like
So is evil the desire for a fool?
that's
Is the
What a-
fool's desire evil?
These are important things we're talking about here, is how those two lines work together.
yeah, because
Yeah,
that's
we're-
like the exact opposite.
That's
of,
right. Yeah.
So Peter said verse 19, and I need new glasses, so when I looked at it, I looked verse 18, I thought was verse 19, so my attention was drawn to verse 18.
Okay.
Poverty and disgrace come to him who ignores instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is honored. And
Mhm.
just coming back to, again, the father instructing his son.
That's right.
And the goal is not just to kick out all your fun or whatever, or just to be heavy-handed. It's because there is honor and blessing
Mhm.
for those who heed wisdom and instruction, and the exact opposite for those who ignore it.
That's right. You know, the call to, will you just listen?
It's really going to be good for you. It's going to go well
That's
for
right.
you if you listen. Please
Would you
do.
just listen?
I love you.
This is
Please
good for
listen.
you. That's exactly right. Good. Good. So there's definitely parenting in here. Go ahead.
Companionship matters.
Yeah.
Verse 20.
There we go. Yes, absolutely. Uh-huh. Yes.
There's a lot of comparison and contrasting the consequences of the two different ways of life.
Pen's starting. That's noisy. I love my blue pen. It's going bad. Yeah, go ahead.
In verse 11, I know he's used a little differently, but
Verse
wealth-
what?
Verse 11.
11. Okay, yep.
Wealth obtained by fraud dwindles. One who gathers by labor increases it.
both gained hastily.
Yeah. So something I thought of was the lottery.
Well,
Oh dear.
Diligence is
a lot of
rewarded.
get-rich-quick schemes. There are
Yeah.
so many, that verse has come to me so often. You get all sorts of advertisements, and I put friends loosely in quotes, but people telling you, hey, do this and you can make lots of money really fast, and just, young people, please look out for that. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
That's-
Almost always.
Yeah.
And little by little, it's
Yep.
get rich quick rarely lasts.
That's
It
right.
really stays.
It rarely pans out the way you think it's going to.
Yeah. Well, and how many times, since you brought up the lottery, how many times have we heard someone won some fabulous, just ridiculous amount of money, and they go back and check on them later, and they've lost it all, or maybe it's too much to lose, but they're miserable.
What, too many multi-million-dollar houses?
So they've squandered it. Cars, right?
Yachts.
Their lives have fallen apart. Their families have fallen apart. They're divorced. They suddenly have friends and family they never knew they had before, and that's just all of a sudden they're popular for all the wrong reasons. Yeah, absolutely. What else?
Discipline matters.
Discipline matters. Yeah, discipline matters.
In verse 7, is it just stating two different things, or is it stating that neither of them are good, or is it recommending one over the other?
Yes, verse 7. I knew that was going to come up. Verse 7. Okay, so let me do it this way. For fun, I guess. Take a poll. How many of you think that verse 7 is, how do I do this? I'm not a room, probably can't see. Verse 7. Is it just an observation about life? Is it a value judgment, like one thing's good, one thing's bad? Is it a set of contrasts? Just, how many of you think it's just an observation on life?
Observation.
Okay? Well, that's
Both.
one.
It's both.
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both what? I got 3 things up there.
I think it's observation and value judgment.
Okay, where is the value judgment?
What is value?
Of
Something's
like,
good, something's bad. I'm showing the value of something.
the pretending to be rich.
Okay.
Pretending what you're not,
Yeah.
pretending to be
So
something
you're
that
saying
not.
pretending to be rich. That's the part of the verse that's bad.
Mhm.
Okay. So you're saying that line A equals bad.
Yes.
And you're suggesting then that line B is equals good?
Not
It's not. It doesn't
It's
necessarily
deceptive
equal
still.
good. It
Oh, wait a
doesn't
minute.
necessarily equal not bad.
Logic, my son.
You shouldn't be bragging about what you have anyway.
Huh?
I think that neither of them are good, particularly. When neither of them are good, or both of them are good. I feel like they are the
Both
same.
lies.
No.
They're both lies.
Hannah's got a,
Mm-hmm.
The third one sounds interesting in both contrasts, but it kind of sounds like it's like the bad extremes. Like some people lie by pretending to be rich, and other people lie by pretending to be poor. But it's just like both ends of the spectrum.
Okay. So I think we were getting there. So yeah, they contrast. The 2 lines contrast, right? But is either line good?
no.
Not really. Not really. One person deflects and tries to look like they've got more. I mean, we know people do that. Or they deflect in the other direction and they have resources and they don't want you to know it.
Oh, poor me, poor me.
Oh, poor me, poor me. And I've known people that went both directions and they're both just a pain.
There's nothing wrong with being frugal, even if you have a lot of money, but
Yeah, that's not the same thing as pretending to be
Yes.
poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're both lies.
They're both lies. Yeah. They're both lies. I've made this point now a couple times during the men's Sunday school as we've talked through portions of Proverbs in relation to growth and maturity, specifically toward leadership. But I made this point that at the beginning of the book of Proverbs, the instructions are, don't join gangs, don't go to the red light district of town. Really basic stuff, right?
That's about it in a nutshell.
It is. At the end of the book, it's, here's how to relate to kings. You're a courtier in a throne room, you are a bureaucrat, but you're in administration, you're a leader, right?
or a king, and that's
Or
right.
the king.
Yeah.
Or the king, for sure. So you go from real basic stuff to now we're on to the nuances of leadership and the difficulties and that kind of thing. And as in the book we've talked about this as guys, and it kind of progresses along that line as you go. And so it gets harder. In verse 7, as I was looking at it tonight, this isn't really the point of verse 7, but it kind of illustrates the point about the book of Proverbs being for growth. Is that you get to verse 7 and you're like, well, that's not plain and simple like it was back at the beginning.
Life isn't that way.
It isn't, and you have to take a little bit of time to go, what's he getting at here? Right? You got to work a little bit harder at understanding it, as opposed to at the very beginning is, my son, if people invite you to go murder other people, don't go. Thanks, Dad. I wouldn't have figured that out. But apparently people don't, right? So,
Because there's people inviting you to go murder people.
right, exactly. So this is just an illustration of, sometimes you have to start working a little bit harder at interpreting it, because the anticipation is you've grown in your wisdom now to wrestle with it. Because you might be tempted to go, oh, it's bad to pretend to be rich, but false humility, right? I can pretend to be poor. No, it's not saying that. Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's just, there's been a lot, both in this chapter and in previous chapters, about the importance of diligence, and
Yeah.
diligence in a normal situation, diligence leads towards wealth, or at
Yeah.
least stability at the very least. And both of those contrasts are really the opposite of that.
That's right.
Somebody who doesn't have anything and yet is spending like they do, putting it all on the credit cards
That's
or
exactly
whatever,
right. Yeah.
so that they can have the appearance of wealth, that's not diligence,
Mhm.
and that's going to not work out. But then somebody who has resources and yet pretends to be poor, whether for sympathy or because they don't want to share what they've been
That's
blessed
right,
with
not
or
generous.
whatever,
Yeah.
that is also not appropriate.
That's
Not
right.
that one should be flaunting wealth or whatever, but there needs to be diligence and stewardship is wise management of resources.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
neither one of those is wise.
Yep. Good.
Somehow I think it's tied to verse 8 too.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, because then now you've got the connection of poor, right, in both verses. The ransom of a person's life is his wealth, but the poor hears no rebuke. What's going on in verse 8?
we have threat, not rebuke.
Okay? Fine?
Which
Yeah,
makes it
something-
seem like the poor man's not going to be, robbed on the side of the road. You can't rob them because you don't have anything.
Well, it can be robbed on the side of the road. It just doesn't mean you get anything.
Okay, we're not dickering about that.
Stolen for a ransom.
So if you have something to lose, something on the line, you're gonna think a little more carefully about things. But if you're like, I don't have anything to lose, you might go off and make some stupid decisions because,
That's right.
it's not gonna cost you anything. you know?
Mhm.
But, but God, at a minimum, God's given us life, and that's something, and
Yeah.
we might not value it, but it matters. What we do matters.
Well, and it's not in this chapter, obviously, and I don't remember if we've already passed it or if it's coming, but there's definitely a verse in Proverbs where he prays that he would have enough and not,
It's Proverbs 30.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, not so much that he's built to sufficiency and forgets God, and not so little that he's tempted to steal,
And
but
thereby,
again,
yep.
being right there kind of in the middle. And again, we're talking about extremes in all of these things. And when it all comes and says and done, by the time you get to Proverbs chapter 30, he's like, you really don't want to be on either end of the spectrum. God, protect me from both ends of
That's
the
right.
spectrum.
Yeah.
The middle-
Lord, I ask of you two things. Give me neither too much nor too little.
The middle class is a blessed place.
The middle class is a blessed place.
Hence the reason they want to stamp it out.
Pretty much.
Didn't Paul say something very similar to that effect? I do not recall where at.
I've learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. Is that what you were thinking of?
No, maybe I was just thinking of public, but I thought Paul had said something very similar.
I'm not exactly sure what you're thinking of. What else? I've got somewhere we're going to round this off, but go ahead.
I was thinking about how as you progress through Proverbs, it becomes more assuming and growing. The age classes between the beginning and the very end are practically, if you were only allowed to read one proverb a year, by the time you're 31, each one is roughly applicable. So from 6 to 31, you get one proverb chapter a year.
Okay. Okay.
6-year-olds would be invited to be joining.
What's that?
6-year-olds would be invited to be joining gangs.
No, Proverbs chapter 6 is about marital fidelity. So, yeah, the joining gangs is one. It's chapter 1.
No, he said it. He said
Don't
it.
join the baby gang.
Don't join the baby gang.
Don't take the cookies.
But
That's
we had a previous pastor at a previous church who made the point that it is so good that babies are incapable of doing anything on their own. Because you see an infant's temper, they would murder you. They might join a gang given the opportunity and the capacity, because their tempers are not under control at all at that point. But I see your point, though. There is definitely these are the things of young men. These are the things of mature and established, and hopefully you've gotten there and have survived. Because if you didn't listen early on, you've not survived to get to that point.
You'd be dead.
You've either been killed in a fight, you have drunk yourself to death, or you've been put to death because of your faithfulnesses. What else, Barbie? You had your hand up.
I don't know what the word is in Hebrew, but in 13:1, at the end of the first line, in ESV it says Father's instruction, and in NASB it's Father's discipline.
Sure.
And it's just that's what the discipline is meant to be for.
Or the other way around. Instruction is not mere knowledge.
Yeah.
What does discipline mean? When you hear the word discipline, what do you mean?
Proof.
Huh?
Reproof.
Okay, don't give me a... Don't,
Train.
huh?
Train.
Train.
Yeah.
Train.
Teach.
Correction to train, right? There is a goal.
That's why disciple.
Huh?
The word is very similar to disciple.
Yes. And the English word is very similar
Yeah.
to disciple. Yeah. And that's just it. We think of discipline and we think of what?
Spankings.
Rod to the back.
The rod. He mentions the rod in verse 24. We think of punishment, right? We sometimes use that as a synonym to punishment, right? It's discipline. But what's the point of all of that? Correction and training, right? Direction of life. So,
On the street.
that's right. To keep you on the path that the Father knows is the right path. What else? Anything else? Okay, I wanted to point a couple things out then. This is as a place to pull up here. It's all through. Let me. Okay, just start in verse. Well, hold on. Let me back up for just a second. Let me show you something we didn't point out before. Chapter 12, verse 1. I want to show you something. Chapter 12, verse 1, please. One who loves discipline loves knowledge, but one who hates rebuke is stupid, according to my translation. Okay, and then from there it goes into instruction. So verse 1 of chapter 12 says, do you love knowledge? Do you love discipline? Or are you stupid? Here's instruction. Look at chapter 13, verse 1. A wise son hears his father's instruction, discipline, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke or reproof, correction, right? So, are you a wise son or a scoffer? Here's the instruction. So both chapters start with, are you listening? Listen up.
Or are you stupid?
Or are you stupid? Okay. So that was just something I noted. But then, verse 2. From the fruit of a person's mouth, he enjoys good. Presumably this would be a faithful person because it's contrasted with the second line. And I know the translations differ here a tad, but maybe the ordering. But the desire of the treacherous is violence.
That's what we have.
Okay. But the desire of the treacherous. So you've got this person in line 1, but in the contrast in line 2 is treacherous. So again, by contrast, the person in the first line is good or faithful. So you've got the fruit of we'll add in faithful person's mouth, he enjoys good, but the desire of the treacherous is violence. Let me go down to okay, then we had verse 7 with that pretending. They want to appear a particular way. Give me a second. A lot of talk about wealth. Verse 12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Notice the word desire there, right? Verse 14, the teaching of the wise is a fountain of life. Verse 15, good understanding produces favor. Let me see. Verse 19, desire realized is sweet to the soul, but it is an abomination to fools to turn away from evil. Verse 21, there's the promise of prosperity. And verse 25, the righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the stomach of the wicked is in need. And there's more than that. I'm just trying to punctuate or just find a few. There is a theme running through this chapter. From what I just read, and our reading before and what I just read, did you pick up on a theme? There's a theme that runs through. Desire. There's a theme of fulfillment or loss that runs through this chapter. Will you be fulfilled? Will you suffer loss? And the kind of fulfillment that he's advocating for, the kind of loss that he's warning against, are opposite things. There is a desire, there is a kind of fulfillment that comes from diligence, that comes from heeding discipline, that comes from righteousness, that comes from wisdom. There's a kind of loss that comes to get-rich-quick schemes, that comes to pretending to appear a certain way, that comes to the way we use our mouths. I think I already said a lack of, that comes to a lack of diligence or violence, verse 2. There seems to be a theme of fulfillment in this chapter. Kind of tracing through, not every verse has it, but just sort of seems to start and end with this idea of, everyone looks for fulfillment, don't we? Right? It's not wrong to desire. The question is, and this is the question, will you be wise or are you a scoffing fool? What do you desire? And what you desire will dictate how you pursue it. I desire quick wealth. What am I going to do?
Lose it.
Well, yes, but what is my life going to look like before I lose it?
Chasing after the next scheme.
Either the scheme or violence and mistreatment or lying, pretending, right? If I desire a tree of life, as in the tree of life, something of real value, lasting value, what am I going to do?
Pursue righteousness.
I'm going to pursue righteousness. I'm going to run to be faithful. I will be diligent. I'm going to work hard.
You're going to listen to the wise counselors God's placed in your life, your parents.
I'm going to listen, right? So what I desire, then, has a lot to do with the direction my life takes. So if I set my desire on the right thing, my life will pursue the right direction, right? With children, early on, you set the direction and trust that they'll understand that it's heading in a way that matches with your values, and assuming we're talking about Christian parents, Christian values, right? Ultimately, the kingdom of heaven. With little children, that's all you can do. No, no, yes, no, right? You're just setting direction, and you're steering them, you're disciplining. But over time, the parent also, as the Bible does, casts a vision. I'll borrow that phrase. And the vision is not about keeping the rules. The vision is about the ultimate fulfillment of knowing God and glorifying Him forever. Right? And you cast that vision before people. I mean, in the context here, it's before a young man, but before people. You cast the vision. Do you want to know the glory of God? And God has promised that He shares His glory with those who want the glory of God. Do you want that? Yes, I do. Well, there is a path. And it's not talking about work salvation, because what's the fundamental starting point? Fear of the Lord, a relationship with Him. Right? It's a faith relationship. But then from there, you want the child to eventually start steering their own life toward that desire. Right? We want Christians to grow to where they're steering their life toward that desire. So we start with, we get to the point, ultimately the motivation is, what is my desire? If it's just comfortable life, getting all I can, grasping all I can, my best life now, I'm looking at you, Joel Osteen.
Who is this?
Very, very famous false prophet, false teacher. He wrote a best-selling book called Your Best Life Now. He's a prosperity gospel guy. If that's what we're after, then you're going to pursue those things. If your vision, if your desire, and this fits, guys, with some of the stuff we were talking back here in the back room. If what you want is the glory of God and the freedom and the joy that comes from walking in fellowship with the Lord after the Lord Jesus Christ, then, yeah, you're going to have stumblings, but your life's direction is going to go, I'm going to listen. My life is going to get steered this way. It seems to me that as we're getting to the middle of the book, he's starting to cast a vision for, what do you desire, son? What do you actually want? Have you set your desires on the right things? Because if you have, this is how to pursue it, but you're going to be motivated to pursue those right things. Does that make sense? And in a way that kind of ties this sort of chapter that's all over the place, it kind of ties it together into this theme of, what do you want, folks? Christian, what do you want? You want to glorify God? You want to know the peace and the joy that passes all understanding? I'm not talking about working for salvation, but I am talking about living according to the profession of faith you've made. What do you want? What do I want? If I want to be faithful, if I want to end my day without shame, if I want to end my life, I don't mean end my life, but I mean when my life comes to the end of my life, do I want it to end without shame, without regret, with the joy of the Lord? Then I'm going to steer my life in a given way by His strength and grace. Does that make sense? Father, I pray that we would desire the right things. We can take the Proverbs, we can look at the wisdom, we can acknowledge, we can look at the multitude of examples of foolishness in our world and say we don't want to do that or be like that or aren't they stupid. But God, I pray that we would desire the tree of life. We would desire you. We would desire your presence. We would desire your glory. And we would desire to participate in your glory. Lord, I pray that that would be our desire so that then when it comes time to make a choice in the moment, we're not remembering rules of do's and don'ts. We are remembering the end game, the goal, the purpose, the pursuit of Christ with everything we have. So the things that this world offers, or that my flesh wants, just looks like a handful of filth and rubbish. And if that's the way we look at what this world offers, then we're, Lord, just going to be more wise, we know. I pray that that would be the kind of wisdom we grow into. In Jesus' name, amen.